When she finally breaks the silence, most men think the danger is saying the wrong thing. But the real risk happens before the words even appear on the screen. It's the moment your phone lights up, your chest tightens, your attention snaps back to her, and without realizing it, you're no longer living your life. You're reacting to hers. That single moment decides everything that follows. Because when a woman reaches out after distance, she's not offering romance. She's not offering clarity. She's presenting a moment of negotiation. And how you respond silently tells her whether you've grown or whether you're still standing exactly where she left you. Most men answer from impulse. They rush. They overinvest. They try to reconnect emotionally before they've even recentered themselves. And in doing so, they hand away their leverage, their standards, and their self-respect, without ever saying a wrong word. But here's what almost no one explains. This moment can work in your favor. If you know how to pause, if you know how to read what's really happening, and if you respond from grounded strength instead of emotional hunger. This video isn't about clever lines or manipulation. It's about presence. It's about clarity. And it's about becoming the kind of man whose life doesn't freeze just because someone returns. Because the moment her name appears on your screen, the real question isn't what she wants, it's who you are now. The moment her message arrives, something happens before logic even shows up. Your body reacts first. Your nervous system fires. Your mind rushes to fill in meaning. That surge you feel isn't confidence. It isn't excitement. And it definitely isn't clarity. It's unresolved emotional tension finally getting a release. When there's been silence, uncertainty builds pressure. And the instant she reaches out, your system treats it like relief, like something valuable is about to be taken away again if you don't act fast enough. That's why your instinct says, reply now. But that instinct doesn't come from strength. It comes from emotional urgency, urgency to secure connection, urgency to feel chosen again, urgency to stop the discomfort of not knowing. And here's the truth most men don't want to face. When you respond instantly, you don't show interest. You reveal position. You show that the silence didn't change your emotional center. You show that her absence didn't push you forward. It kept you waiting. You show that she still has immediate access to your attention, regardless of how she handled the distance. Women don't analyze this intellectually. They feel it. The energy behind a fast reply after silence communicates dependence far louder than any words ever could. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about understanding the difference between reacting and choosing. A man who reacts is controlled by impulse. A man who chooses moves from stability. And until you interrupt that first instinct, you will keep repeating the same dynamic, no matter how carefully you choose your words. Most men misunderstand the pause. They think waiting is a tactic, a strategy, a way to appear distant or increase value. But the pause has nothing to do with her. It has everything to do with you. When she reaches out after silence, your emotions surge faster than you're thinking. Your body wants certainty immediately. It wants relief from the tension that's been sitting quietly in the background. Responding right away feels like control, but it's actually escape. Escape from discomfort. Escape from uncertainty. Escape from having to sit with your own emotional reaction. The pause interrupts that cycle. It gives your emotions time to settle instead of steering the wheel. It allows your nervous system to return to baseline so your response comes from clarity, not craving. This isn't ignoring her to provoke a reaction. That's a game. This is containment, the ability to feel everything without letting it control you. A grounded man doesn't rush because he doesn't need immediate relief. He can tolerate a moment of uncertainty without losing his center. Picture this. She sends a simple, "Hey." Your pulse jumps. Your instinct says reply now. Instead, you put the phone down. You continue what you were doing, your work, your training, your life. 30 to 60 minutes later, you return to the message with a calm mind and steady energy. Now you're not chasing connection. You're choosing how to engage. That's power. Because the man who can pause isn't performing strength, he's embodying it. And stability like that is felt immediately, without explanation. Before you even think about what to say to her, there's one place you have to look first. Not at her message, not at her timing, not at what you hope it means. You look at yourself, because if your internal state is unstable, your response will be unstable, no matter how carefully you phrase it. A man who needs her message to feel grounded is already negotiating from below, and that's why this step matters more than any clever reply you could ever send. Ask yourself the first question, honestly. Am I hoping this message saves me from feeling alone? If the answer is yes, pause longer. That's not clarity. That's emotional dependence trying to disguise itself as connection. Second question, am I assuming this message means everything has changed? One text doesn't erase past distance, inconsistency, or unresolved patterns. Your mind will try to rush ahead and write a story she hasn't confirmed. That's projection, not reality. Third question, if someone else sent this same message, would I feel this activated? If not, then you're not reacting to the message. You're reacting to history, chemistry, and unfinished emotional business. And that's a dangerous place to respond from. Now step back and observe the pattern. Has she disappeared before? Does she return casually without acknowledging the distance? Does she show up when it's convenient, then fade again? Patterns don't lie. Emotional hope just tries to silence them. When you slow down enough to see the full picture, you stop responding from fantasy and start responding from truth. And only from that place can you move forward with self-respect intact. When she reaches out after a period of silence, most men focus on what she said. A hey, a casual question, a friendly emoji. But words in isolation mean very little. What matters is the pattern behind them. Patterns tell you whether her return is intentional or incidental, whether she's stepping forward with clarity or simply testing if you're still available. Ask yourself honestly, has she gone quiet before without explanation? Does she tend to disappear when things require consistency? Does she resurface only when she's bored, lonely, or seeking validation? If the silence was never acknowledged, that silence didn't disappear. It was avoided. A woman who values connection doesn't pretend distance didn't happen. She addresses it, even subtly. She doesn't just slide back into your life as if nothing was interrupted. This isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Inconsistent behavior doesn't turn into commitment just because time passed. And a soft message doesn't rewrite history. Your emotional bias will try to minimize the past because hope feels better than clarity. But clarity is what protects your self-respect. Look at her actions over time, not her tone in the moment. Consistency is intention. Accountability is interest. Effort is investment. And the absence of those things is information, even if the message itself sounds pleasant. Once you start reading patterns instead of interpreting words, you stop chasing meaning and start seeing truth. And from that position, you're finally able to lead the interaction instead of being pulled into it. When she reappears after silence, the emotional frame between you is no longer intact. Something was interrupted. Something shifted. And the fastest way to lose ground is to pretend nothing happened and rush back into the same energy you had before she disappeared. Many men do exactly that. They overcompensate with warmth. They try to recreate intimacy too quickly. They fill the gap with enthusiasm, hoping momentum will pull her closer. But that behavior doesn't lead, it follows. Leading the emotional tone means refusing to be dragged into urgency. It means setting the pace instead of surrendering to it. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to be distant. You need to be grounded. Grounded energy is neutral, steady, and self-contained. It doesn't rush to impress or explain. It communicates, I'm here, but I'm not chasing. One of the strongest ways to establish this frame is through calm curiosity. Not interrogation, not pressure. Curiosity. A simple question like, what made you want to reach out? Does more than any clever line ever could. It brings the silence into the conversation without accusation. It invites honesty without demanding it, and it reveals her emotional posture instantly. If she avoids the question, you learn something. If she takes responsibility, you learn something else. Remember, frame isn't about control. It's about direction. You're not trying to pull her toward you. You're creating a space she either steps into with intention or doesn't. And the moment you stop forcing momentum, You allow truth to surface. When she finally reaches out, it can feel like a door has opened, a door to relief, a door to answers, a door to everything you've been holding inside. And that's exactly where many men lose their footing. They mistake emotional release for honesty. They confuse vulnerability with unloading. Long messages, over explanations, confessions fueled by relief, fear, and hope all at once. But emotional overflow isn't strength, it's loss of containment. True vulnerability is grounded, it's measured, it's shared from stability, not urgency. When raw emotion spills out the moment she returns, it places weight on her that she never agreed to carry. It signals that her presence destabilizes you, that your emotional center still lives in her hands, and that doesn't create connection. It creates pressure. Avoiding emotional overflow doesn't mean pretending you weren't affected. That's suppression, and suppression always cracks later. Containment is different. Containment means you fully feel what came up during the silence, but you process it privately first. Through reflection, writing, honest conversations with trusted people, time. Here's a simple rule that protects you. If what you want to send is longer than 2 sentences, write it somewhere else first. Read it back and ask, is this clarity or is this emotional release? Most of what feels urgent in the moment isn't truth. It's temporary emotion searching for relief. When connection is real, there will be space for depth later, but that space must be earned through consistency, not forced through intensity. A man who can contain his emotions doesn't appear closed. He appears stable, and stability speaks louder than explanation ever could. The silence you went through wasn't just empty time. It wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a void you barely survived. It was a reset. During that distance, something important happened. Your emotional system recalibrated. The constant anticipation faded. The mental noise quieted. Your focus slowly returned to your own rhythm instead of someone else's availability. Maybe you slept better. Maybe you trained harder. Maybe your work sharpened. Maybe you simply noticed how much lighter life feels when you're not waiting. That's peace. Not the absence of emotion, but the presence of stability. So when she reappears, the question isn't how to bring her back into your life. The question is whether letting her back in protects the peace you rebuilt or disrupts it. Many men welcome emotional instability just to avoid loneliness. They confuse turbulence with connection. They mistake intensity for intimacy. But familiar chaos doesn't become healthy just because it feels familiar. Before you reply, observe the energy she brings with her. Is there clarity or vagueness, accountability or avoidance, consistency or convenience? Her message isn't an invitation, it's information. And from this position, the power has already shifted. You're no longer standing outside hoping to be chosen. You're standing inside a life you stabilized, deciding what deserves access. And that mindset alone changes how you speak, how you respond, and what you tolerate. Once you're centered, clear, and no longer reacting from impulse, you reach the most important stage: choice, not hope, not fear, choice. When she returns after silence, there are only 3 grounded paths forward, and each one reflects self-respect when chosen consciously. Option 1: acknowledge, then maintain distance. If her energy is vague, inconsistent, or avoids accountability, you keep the interaction respectful but limited. You don't argue. You don't chase clarity. You don't invest where consistency is absent. Your tone is calm. Your replies are measured. You're not cold, you're selective. Distance here isn't punishment, it's discernment. Option 2: open the door slowly. If she shows genuine responsibility, emotional openness, and consistent effort, you can allow the connection to reopen, but at a controlled pace. You prioritize actions over words, consistency over excitement, presence over promises. You're not rebuilding the past, you're evaluating the future. Interest without pressure, openness without surrender. Option 3: step away completely. If her return repeats old patterns, threatens your peace, or pulls you back into emotional instability, walking away is not weakness, it's maturity. Sometimes the strongest response is protecting your future, even when your feelings tug toward the past. Silence or respectful closure are both valid choices when rooted in self-respect. The point isn't which option you take. The point is that you choose, not your fear, not your longing, and not the version of you who once waited for certainty at the cost of his center. By the time she reaches out, the real test isn't what she said or why she said it. It's who you are now. There's the version of you she walked away from, the man who reacted quickly, overinvested emotionally, and hoped effort would close the distance. And then there's the man who emerged during the silence, the man who learned restraint instead of urgency, clarity instead of fantasy, self-respect instead of emotional chasing. This version of you doesn't fear outcomes. He's not auditioning. He's not trying to be chosen. He understands that connection only works when both people show up with intention, not when one is chasing certainty and the other controls access. He doesn't need to explain his growth. He demonstrates it through pace, tone, and boundaries. So when her message appears, you don't treat it like a lifeline. You pause, you observe, you choose. Whether she stays in your life or not, your response comes from the man you became, not the man you used to be. Because this moment isn't about getting her back. It's about not losing yourself the moment she returns. So ask yourself one final question before you reply. Am I answering as the man I was or the man I've grown into? Answer that honestly and everything else becomes clear. When a woman returns after silence, most men see it as a second chance. But in reality, it's a mirror. It reflects how you handle uncertainty. It exposes whether you still seek reassurance from the outside or generate stability from within. Her message doesn't define your value. Her return doesn't validate your growth, and her absence was never the thing holding you back. What matters is how you meet the moment. Do you rush to relieve discomfort, or can you stay grounded? Do you abandon your standards for familiarity, or protect the peace you built? Do you respond from fear of loss, or clarity of self? This is where real masculine strength shows itself, not in control, not in clever words, but in restraint, discernment, and calm authority. Some men survive silence and remain the same. Others evolve through it. The difference is never what she does. It's who you become when no one is watching, and who answers the phone when she finally returns.